Ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you today that no matter what you're facing, no matter how big the challenge or how impossible it seems, God is already handling it. You may not see the solution. You may not understand how it's all going to work out. But let me encourage you. God is behind the scenes working things in your favor. Too often we get caught up in overthinking, playing out every scenario, worrying about things that may never happen, trying to figure out what only God can fix. But can I tell you, that burden is not yours to carry. The same God who spoke the universe into existence, the same God who parted the Red Sea, the same God who has brought you through before, He hasn't forgotten you now. So today I want you to take a deep breath, release the worry, and trust that God is in control. He's already handling it, and He's already made a way. Your job is not to stress, but to stand in faith. Amen? God is already working behind the scenes. Trust His timing. You may not see it, you may not feel it, but that doesn't mean God isn't moving. Too often, we look at our circumstances and assume that nothing is happening because we can't physically see a change. But faith is not about what we see, it's about what we know. And what we know is that God is always at work orchestrating things in ways we can't imagine. He's aligning the right people, shifting situations, and preparing the breakthroughs long before they ever show up in our life. It's easy to get discouraged when we don't see immediate results. We pray, we believe, we do our part, but when things don't change as fast as we want, doubt begins to creep in. We start to wonder if God even heard us. We question whether we're on the right path. But God's timing is perfect. He doesn't rush and He doesn't delay. He knows exactly when and how to bring things together for our good. The problem is, we live in a world that thrives on instant gratification. We expect things to happen quickly. If we don't see results right away, we assume nothing is happening. But just because there's no visible progress doesn't mean there's no movement. Think about a seed planted in the ground. For a long time, it looks like nothing is happening. The surface remains unchanged. But underneath, roots are growing, strength is building, and at the right time, that seed will break through the soil. Sometimes God hides the process because He knows we might not understand it. If we could see every step, we might try to interfere. We might try to force things before they're ready. So He works behind the scenes, allowing everything to come together in the best way possible. That's why trusting His timing is so important. If He showed us everything too soon, we might not be able to handle it. There are lessons to be learned in the waiting. There is strength being built in the process. God is not just preparing the blessing for you, He's preparing you for the blessing. Think about Joseph in the Bible. He had a dream that one day he would be in a position of power, but before that dream became a reality, he went through years of trials. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and imprisoned. To an outsider, it looked like nothing was going right for him. But behind the scenes, God was working. Every challenge, every setback was part of the preparation. If Joseph had been placed in his position of power too soon, he wouldn't have been ready for it. The waiting, the struggles, the lessons, those were all necessary to shape him into the leader he was meant to be. Sometimes we pray for things, but God knows we're not ready to receive them yet. We ask for increase, but He knows we need to develop more discipline. We ask for new opportunities, but He knows we need to build more character. We ask for relationships, but He knows we need to learn how to love ourselves first. It's not that He's denying us, it's that He's preparing us. When the time is right, what is meant for you will find you. The challenge is to stay faithful even when you don't see anything happening. It's easy to trust God when the doors are opening, when the blessings are flowing, and when everything is falling into place. But true faith is trusting Him even in the silence. True faith is believing that He's at work even when there's no evidence in front of you. That's the test. Can you keep trusting Him when there's no sign of change? Can you stay faithful when it seems like nothing is happening? Think about an artist working on a masterpiece. The canvas may look messy in the beginning. The colors may seem out of place, but the artist knows what they're creating. From the outside, it might not make sense, but in the artist's mind, there's already a vision of the finished work. God is the ultimate artist. Your life may feel messy right now. Things may look out of order, but He knows exactly what He's creating. He knows where each brushstroke belongs. He knows what needs to be added and what needs to be removed. And when the time is right, you'll see the full picture. The enemy wants you to believe that if you don't see it, then it's not happening. He wants you to give up in the waiting. He wants you to believe that God has forgotten about you. But that's a lie. God is always working even in the silence. Even when it seems like nothing is moving, He's moving things in your favor. He's working behind the scenes in ways you can't see. Just because you don't have all the answers doesn't mean He isn't working things out for your good. When we rush ahead of God's timing, we end up with things that aren't fully developed. We settle for less than what He had planned because we were too impatient to wait. But when we trust His process, when we believe that He knows what's best, we allow Him to bring the right things at the right time. Waiting is not wasted time, it's preparation time. It's building your faith, strengthening your endurance, and shaping you for what's ahead. Trusting God's timing means surrendering control. It means letting go of the need to know every detail and believing that He already has it figured out. It's understanding that just because it's not happening now doesn't mean it's not going to happen. His ways are higher, His plans are greater, and His timing is perfect. Even when you don't see it, He's working. Even when you don't understand it, He's making a way. God is already handling it, and in due time, you'll see the fulfillment of what He has promised. Overthinking creates fear, but faith brings peace. When you constantly replay scenarios in your mind, analyzing every detail, questioning every outcome, and imagining all the possible ways things could go wrong, you're allowing fear to take control. Fear thrives on uncertainty, and overthinking feeds that uncertainty. Instead of trusting that things will work out, you start convincing yourself that they won't. You create problems that don't exist. You magnify obstacles that aren't even there. What if I fail? What if they reject me? What if this never changes? The more you dwell on these thoughts, the more power they have over you. Before you know it, you are paralyzed by doubt, unable to move forward, afraid to take risks, and too consumed by worry to enjoy the present moment. Fear always whispers the worst case scenario. It tells you that you're not capable, that you're not good enough, that things will never improve. It makes you question God's plan. It makes you believe that you have to figure everything out on your own. Fear convinces you that if you don't think through every single possibility, you might lose control. But the truth is, you were never meant to have control over everything. There are some things only God can handle. The more you try to take control by overthinking, the more exhausted you become. Your mind runs in circles, but nothing changes. You stay stuck, weighed down by worries that were never yours to carry in the first place. Faith, on the other hand, brings peace. Faith says, I don't have to know all the answers because I trust that God does. Faith reminds you that even if things don't make sense now, they will in time. Faith allows you to breathe, to rest, and to move forward without carrying the weight of fear. When you walk in faith, you don't have to overanalyze every situation. You don't have to figure out every detail. You don't have to keep replaying conversations in your head or worrying about what someone else is thinking. You understand that what is meant for you will not pass you by. And what is not meant for you is not worth stressing over. When Peter walked on water toward Jesus, he was fine as long as he kept his eyes on him. But the moment he started focusing on the wind and the waves, fear took over and he began to sink. That's what happens when you overthink. You start focusing on all the things that could go wrong instead of trusting that God is in control. The wind and the waves will always be there. Life will always have uncertainty. But the difference between sinking and standing is where you place your focus. If you focus on fear, it will consume you. But if you focus on faith, you will rise above the storm. Overthinking is a habit, and like any habit, it can be broken. It starts with recognizing when you are allowing your mind to spiral into fear. Pay attention to your thoughts. Are they filled with doubt and worry? Or are they rooted in faith and trust? When you catch yourself overanalyzing a situation, pause and ask yourself, is this something I can control? If the answer is no, then release it. If the answer is yes, then do what you can and trust that God will handle the rest. Worrying about things that haven't happened yet is a waste of energy. Jesus said, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Overthinking pulls you into the future, but faith keeps you grounded in the present. You cannot change what has already happened, and you cannot control what is ahead, but you can choose to trust God in this moment. You can choose to let go of the need to figure everything out. You can choose to replace fear with faith, anxiety with prayer, and overthinking with surrender. The mind is powerful, and what you focus on expands. If you constantly focus on what could go wrong, you will live in a state of stress and fear. But if you focus on God's promises, on His faithfulness, and on the truth that He is always working for your good, you will experience peace that surpasses all understanding. That peace is not dependent on circumstances. It comes from knowing that no matter what happens, God is in control, and He will never fail you. Many times the things we worry about never even happen. We waste hours, days, even years worrying about things that never come to pass. But every moment spent overthinking is a moment to the unknown, and to trust that no matter what happens, you will be okay. When you choose faith over fear, you break free from the cycle of overthinking. You no longer feel the need to control every detail because you trust that God is already handling it. You stop dwelling on the past and stop worrying about the future because you know that God's plan is greater than anything you could ever imagine. You begin to live with confidence, knowing that you are exactly where you are meant to be and that everything is unfolding as it should. Faith replaces doubt. Peace replaces anxiety, and you finally experience the freedom that comes from fully trusting God. Overthinking keeps you stuck in a cycle of stress and anxiety, making it difficult to move forward with confidence. When you constantly analyze every decision, replay past mistakes, and worry about the future, you rob yourself of the peace and joy that come from trusting God. You tell yourself that if you think about something long enough, you will find the perfect solution, but in reality, overthinking does not bring clarity, it brings confusion. Instead of making progress, you stay trapped in your thoughts, paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. God never intended for you to live this way. He did not create you to carry the weight of every decision on your own. He has already planned your steps, and He knows what is best for you. But when you overthink, you take your focus off God and put it on yourself. You try to control things that were never meant to be in your hands. You become so focused on trying to figure everything out that you forget to trust that God has already worked it out. Overthinking is often rooted in the fear of making the wrong decision. You tell yourself that if you make a mistake, everything will fall apart. But that is not how God operates. He does not expect you to be perfect. He does not require you to have all the answers. What He asks is that you trust Him, even when you do not know what the future holds. When you surrender your worries to Him, you free yourself from the burden of trying to control everything. You realize that no decision is bigger than God's ability to guide you back on track. Even if you take a wrong turn, He can redirect you. Even if you fail, He can restore you. Nothing is beyond His power. The enemy loves to use overthinking as a weapon against you. He wants to keep your mind so consumed with doubts and fears that you become too afraid to act. He whispers lies that make you question yourself, your abilities, and even God's plan for your life. He wants you to believe that you have to figure everything out on your own, that you cannot trust God's timing, and that you are not capable of handling what is ahead. But when you recognize these thoughts for what they are, lies, you can choose to reject them. You can remind yourself of God's promises and replace fear with faith. One of the biggest traps of overthinking is believing that every decision has to be perfect. You tell yourself that if you make the wrong choice, everything will go wrong. But the truth is, God is bigger than your mistakes. He sees the bigger picture. Even when you do not understand why things happen the way they do, He is always working for your good. What may seem like a setback is often a setup for something greater. What feels like a mistake can be the very thing that leads you to where you are meant to be. When you trust that God is guiding your steps, you no longer have to fear making the wrong decision. You can move forward with confidence, knowing that even if things do not go as planned, God's plan is still in motion. Worrying about the future will not change it. Overanalyzing the past will not undo it. The only thing you have control over is this moment. When you stop overthinking, you give yourself the freedom to live fully in the present. You can focus on what is in front of you instead of being consumed by what is and maybes. You can take action instead of being stuck in indecision. You can experience peace instead of anxiety. The more you trust God, the less you feel the need to overthink. You begin to understand that you do not have to have all the answers to move forward. You do not have to know every detail before you take the next step. You simply have to trust that God is leading you where you need to go. When you shift your focus from overthinking to faith, you find the clarity and peace that your mind has been searching for. You no longer feel overwhelmed by decisions because you know that whatever happens, God is already handling it. Trusting God means surrendering your need to control the outcome. When you overthink, you are trying to take control of something that is already in God's hands. You convince yourself that if you think long enough, if you analyze every detail, if you weigh every possible scenario, you will somehow gain control over the situation. But control is an illusion. No matter how much you think about it, no matter how much you try to plan, you cannot control everything that happens in life. There will always be uncertainties, unknowns, and situations beyond your understanding. The more you try to control, the more exhausted and anxious you become. God did not create you to live in a constant state of worry and stress. He did not call you to figure everything out on your own. He called you to trust Him, to lean on His wisdom instead of your own understanding. When you trust God, you release the burden of trying to control what was never yours to control in the first place. You recognize that His ways are higher, that His plans are greater, and that even when things don't make sense to you, He is still working all things together for your good. Many times, the reason people overthink is that they are afraid of surrendering. They believe that if they let go, if they stop trying to control everything, things will fall apart. But surrendering to God does not mean giving up. It means letting go of the unnecessary stress and trusting that He knows what He's doing. It means acknowledging that His plan is better than anything you could come up with on your own. It means understanding that you don't have to have all the answers because He already does. Fear often tells you that you have to keep thinking, keep planning, keep worrying in order to protect yourself from failure or disappointment. But faith tells you that you don't have to do any of that. Faith tells you that you can trust God's timing, that you can rely on His guidance, that you can have peace even when things don't seem to be going your way. Faith reminds you that you are not alone in this. You have a God who goes before you, who stands beside you, and who will never let you down. The enemy wants you to believe that you have to be in control. He wants you to doubt God's plan. He wants you to think that if you don't figure everything out, if you don't overanalyze every detail, something bad will happen. But that is a lie. The truth is God already has everything under control. He is already handling the situation. He already has a way through. You don't have to stress. You don't have to overthink. You don't have to keep carrying the weight of something that was never meant to be yours to carry. When you surrender your overthinking to God, you experience freedom. You stop wasting energy on things that don't matter. You stop trying to solve problems that only He can solve. You stop living in fear of the unknown and start living in confidence, knowing that He has already gone before you. Instead of trying to predict the future, you learn to live in the present. Instead of worrying about what might happen, you trust that whatever happens, God is in control. There is power in letting go. When you stop overthinking, you make room for peace. When you stop trying to control the outcome, you make room for faith. When you stop holding on so tightly to your own plans, you make room for God to move in ways you never expected. The breakthrough you've been waiting for might not come from overanalyzing. It might come from releasing. The clarity you've been searching for might not come from thinking harder. It might come from trusting deeper. The peace you've been longing for might not come from having all the answers. It might come from surrendering the need to have all the answers. Worrying about the future robs you of the present. So many people spend their days consumed with what-if scenarios. Imagining every possible outcome, preparing to solve your problems. It does not bring you peace, and it does not give you control. All it does is drain your energy and steal your joy. Jesus Himself said, "Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life?" Yet so often people live as if worrying will somehow protect them. As if thinking about something long enough will guarantee that they never experience pain, failure, or disappointment. God never called you to live in a state of anxiety about the future. He calls you to live in the present moment, trusting that He is taking care of what is ahead. He knows your needs, He sees your struggles, and He already has a plan in place. But when you allow your mind to be consumed with worry, you miss out on the blessings that are right in front of you. You miss the joy of today because you are so focused on the uncertainties of tomorrow. You miss the beauty of the moment because you are too busy thinking about what could go wrong. Worry is a tactic the enemy uses to distract you from God's peace. He wants you so focused on fear and doubt that you forget to trust in God's faithfulness. He wants you so caught up in your thoughts that you fail to recognize the ways God is already working things out for your good. The more you dwell on the unknown, the more powerless you feel. But the moment you shift your focus to God's promises, worry begins to lose its grip on you. Every day is a gift. But when your mind is constantly in the future, you fail to appreciate what you have right now. You worry about money when God has already provided for you. You stress about relationships when God is already working in them. You overthink your decisions when God has already given you wisdom. The more you live in your thoughts, the less you live in reality. And the truth is, reality is where God moves. He does not meet you in the what ifs. He meets you in the here and now. When you trust that God is already handling your future, you begin to live with a sense of freedom. You wake up without carrying the weight of tomorrow on your shoulders. You move through your day with confidence, knowing that He has already gone ahead of you. You stop letting fear dictate your choices and start stepping into what God has prepared for you. Instead of holding back because of worry, you move forward in faith. So many breakthroughs are missed because people are too afraid to take action. They spend so much time overthinking, analyzing every possible outcome, waiting for the perfect moment that they never actually move forward. But faith requires action. Trusting God means taking steps. Even when you do not see the full picture, it means believing that He will make a way even when you do not understand how. It means choosing peace over worry, choosing faith over fear, and choosing to live fully in the present instead of being trapped in thoughts about the future. God does not want you to live in fear of what is ahead. He wants you to live in the assurance that He is already there. He is already making a way, already preparing the blessings, already handling the challenges. You do not have to have it all figured out. You do not have to have all the answers. You simply have to trust that He does. The moment you release your need to control the future is the moment you truly start to live. Peace comes when you truly believe that God is in control. When you overthink, worry, and stress over every detail of your life, you are carrying a weight you were never meant to bear. You are trying to manage things that only God can handle. You analyze every situation, replay conversations in your mind, and try to predict the outcome of events that haven't even happened yet. But none of this brings you the peace you are searching for. It only creates more anxiety, more uncertainty, and more exhaustion. The reason is simple. You were never meant to figure everything out on your own. God's peace is not something you earn through careful planning or overanalyzing. It is something you receive when you choose to trust Him. The more you let go of the need to control every outcome, the more room you make for His peace to fill your heart. The Bible says, "Be still and know that I am God." Being still does not mean doing nothing. It means resting in the assurance that He is already working things out for you. It means releasing the need to have every answer and simply trusting that He has already gone before you. When you overthink, you allow fear to take the driver's seat. You let doubt creep in, questioning whether things will work out, whether you made the right decision, whether you are on the right path. You replay mistakes, worry about the future, and overanalyze every detail of your life. But fear and faith cannot operate in the same space. The more you feed your fears, the weaker your faith becomes. The more you trust in God's control, the less space fear has to take hold of you. God has already promised to guide your steps. He has already assured you that He has a plan for your life. But every time you overthink, you are acting as if those promises are not enough. You are behaving as if God's plan needs your constant input, as if He is not capable of working things out on His own. But the truth is, His ways are higher than yours. His thoughts are greater. He sees the bigger picture, and He knows exactly what is best for you, even when you do not understand. The enemy wants to keep you stuck in a cycle of worry. He wants you so consumed with your thoughts that you fail to experience the peace that God has already made available to you. He knows that when